Namaskar. My name is Dr. Divya Shikhar, and it is with great pleasure and pride that I extend my warmest congratulations to Dr. Arun Dave and Vedant Knowledge Systems for organizing this prestigious conference entitled Reimagining Higher Education in the 21st Century, an inclusive way forward towards Viksit Bharat via NEP 2020 and IKS. To guide a session in this conference of such national significance envisions the transformative future of education in India. It speaks volumes about the respect and recognition that Vedant knowledge system commands in the field of academic community.
Hello everyone. The title of my paper is When Matter Teaches, Decentering the Human Teacher and Rethinking Pedagogy through NRIS's Interview with the Vampire. This study brings together Jane Bennett's theory of vibrant matter and NRIS's novel to rethink how learning happens. I introduce the idea of material pedagogy where teaching is not limited to humans alone. Now, the problem. So, what happens is that we usually think of education as human centered activity. A teacher explains, student listens, and learning happens. Classrooms are often treated as neutral spaces where knowledge is transferred. But this assumption raises a question. Are environments really passive? Or do objects, spaces, and material conditions participate in shaping the learning? This paper challenges this traditional belief. To rethink this idea, I have used Jane Bennett's theory from vibrant matter. Bennett argues that matter is not passive. Objects and environments possess what she calls as think power. That means they have the power and the capacity to influence the events. She introduces the concept of distributed agency, which means actions do not come only from humans alone. Rather, they emerge from networks of human and non-human forces working together. So learning from this perspective is not individual or isolated. It is an assemblage. It means it's a network of interacting forces. The research gap that was found was that most researchers on Interview with the Vampire focus on psychological conflict, morality, identity, and desire. However, very little attention has been given to how environments shape Lewis's transformation. Matters or aspects like hunger, darkness, confinement, and the city are often treated as background atmosphere. This study argues that these are not just background elements, they are active pedagogical forces. Material forces as teachers, how these material forces act as teachers. So in this novel, the character Lewis is not shaped only by Lestat. He learns through his encounters with hunger for blood, darkness, confinement, and the city. These forces shape his reactions even before he consciously understands them. Learning does not begin with explanation here. It begins with experiences. It happens through his encounters rather than instructions. Further, taking an example here, I'll elaborate one theme from the paper, that is blood as a teacher. So, in this novel, blood is often interpreted symbolically. However, from Bennett's perspective, blood is an active material force. After his transformation, Lewis describes how his human fluids are forced out and how he feels both dead as well as alive at once. Blood creates hunger in him. It disciplines his body. Even when Lewis morally resists killing, his body compels him to kill. His ethical struggle does not arise from a lecture or moral instruction, but it unfolds through bodily sensations. This reflects Bennett's idea that matter can shape outcomes and even it can block human intentions. So here what happens is that the blood becomes a teacher. It forces him to understand what he has become. If we connect this to education, we will realize that students are not just mind, they are bodies. Things like hunger, fatigue, discomfort, stress, all these things influence learning. If a student is hungry, he cannot focus, no matter how effective the teaching strategies are. So, here the body learns before the intellect does. What are the educational implications of this? So, first of all, the students are physical beings. Classroom temperature, comfort, and emotional state, all these things affect attention. In fact, the time also matters a lot. Rushed academic schedules can create a very shallow learning. Space matters. Seating arrangements, lighting, architecture influences participation as well as hierarchy. Finally, learning extends beyond the classrooms. It is not limited to the classrooms. Things like media, technology, and urban environments are also a part of the pedagogical network. So, teaching is not only a single act. It is not only a single act of interactions between a teacher and a student, but it is a shared phenomenon with the matters as well. In conclusion, when Interview with the Vampire is read through Bennett's theory, it compels us to rethink the education. Learning is distributed. Matter and human work together in shaping understanding. When human teacher, decentering the human teacher does not mean removing the teachers. It should not be misunderstood as removing the teachers. Rather, it means recognizing that teaching happens with a network of bodies, objects, and environments. In a world shaped by technology and material conditions, acknowledging that this distributed agency becomes very essential. Thank you so much.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Ms. Dhaval for being a part of this conference and bringing Jane Bennett's vibrant matters into dialogues with Anne Rice's Interview with Vampires. It is intellectually bold and interdisciplinary concept that material pedagogy is especially strong and has real potential for further development. The paper clearly explains the key ideas like distributed agency, assemblage, and the close reading of blood, darkness, coffin, and city is well supported with textual evidence. The move from literary analysis to classroom implication is creative and relevant to contemporary pedagogy. For improvement, I would suggest three key areas. First, sharpen the research gap. Be more precise about what you exactly has not been done in the previous RICE studies or new materialist criticism. This will strengthen your academic positioning. Second, expand the methodological slate. Clarify why close reading is particularly suitable for a new materialist framework. Just briefly try to show the selections of material element in your paper. Third, deepen the theoretical argument. Along with applying Bennett, you might briefly question or extend her framework, especially regarding human moral agency. That would elevate the paper from application to contribution. Finally, since the conference foregrounds NEP 2020 and IKS, I strongly recommend you to try to derive some kind of connection between the idea of material pedagogy with more holistic and experiential learning and see if you can relate it with Indian philosophical notions that matters as dynamic rather than inert. This alignment will significantly strengthen the relevance of your paper to the theme of Viksit Bharat. Overall, this is a promising and conceptually sound paper with sharp framing and deeper theoretical engagement. It will be far better than what it is.
A very good evening, one and all. I am Dr. Klinsa Kurien, and I would like to present on my topic Self-Induced Research-Based Creativity Insights as a Methodological Study in the 21st Century Indian Knowledge Systems. Now, basically, I would be talking about how knowledge generation or knowledge and content become very important in this age of AI. And I'm also connecting it to the Indian knowledge systems. Um, Knowledge ecosystems are a very big thing in the study of programs, what with the introduction of startups and incubation centers. And these incubation centers essentially run around only innovation. And while they are also blending up technology and the right processes. For example, we have a lot of farming innovations that are happening, and this essentially bridges the gap between lab and land processes. Well, on the other hand, we also have the digital marketing, content, and creation, which is a big time industry in today's time. They are also being customized as per the needs of the citizens. And interestingly, another point which is referred to as the right to disconnect is also one of the steps which helps in creativity and enhancing productivity while having some personal and free time. This also aids in a forward growing economy, and it is also based on an individual's personal goal system and then institutional development rather than being the other way around. For all these things, a step by step process and method has to be followed. Thus, the customer himself or herself becoming a generator and an innovator as part of the process. As we all know, that traditional knowledge ecosystems have always been a thing of not only the past, but they are also a thing of the present times. And this is very, very important as far as research goes. The return to the roots is always important in terms of the IKS because of the ancient and time immemorial train of thought that have been provided by our ancient sages and also their knowledge and dedication to the culture and society of today's and yesterday's time. Most of the concepts are modeled around topics like Arthashastra, Natyashastra, and even the Charaka Samhita. These are devised in order to aid students to become experts not only in knowledge generation and creation, but also innovation and to find out the true path of progress, innovation, and development. My research is based on three premises or objectives. Firstly, I'm doing a revisionist reading of the classic works of Indian writers. Secondly, I'm talking about the relevance of research in the age of artificial intelligence through IKS. Thirdly, how innovation is important as a tool for concreting masses or spreading the message to large amount of population. For this, I would like to justify my point by saying that the great classic works of Indian authors like the Abhigyana Shakuntalam, Meghdutam, and the Rasa theory, they're not just concepts, but they're also relevant in any age and clime. And its timelessness, since their themes are universal and absolutely matchless. Another instance is that of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, which are all-time favorite epics, and they are not only religious books, but they also help us in sustaining ourselves through the challenges of life and the social code of conduct or dharma that every citizen ought to follow. And dharma is referred to as the right code of conduct, and which we should adhere to at all times. Reading classic works in the age of AI always brings in a revisionist perspective and it helps gain fresher and fresher insights. It enhances not only the creative potential of students but the teachers alike. Another example that I can quote is that of the art of storytelling, which has been handed down to us through our mothers since we were infants. And the same art of storytelling has attained a great character and importance, especially in the age of AI, where they are producing great growth options and career opportunities. Innovation in terms of a changing mindset and pattern of growth ultimately aids in the development of societies and individuals. Like, for instance, the theory of nirvana of Buddhism, which ultimately talks about the truth and absolute happiness and peace that every individual strives for. This is the conclusion and the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for the patient listening.
Hello, Dr. Kurien. I'll try to offer my brief and constructive feedback on your paper entitled as Self-Induced Research-Based Creativity Insights as a methodological study in 21st century Indian knowledge system. First, I appreciate the vision of your paper, positioning research creativity within Indian knowledge system and linking it to AI, innovative ecosystem and self-driven knowledge generation is both timely and relevant. Your engagement with classical texts such as Arthashastra, Natyashastra, Charak Samhita as well as Ramayana and the Mahabharata reflects a strong grounding in Indian intellectual tradition. You rightly treat tradition as a living resource rather than nostalgia. Now, a few suggestions. First, the central argument needs sharper clarity. Since the title calls itself as methodological study, try to clearly define the method that you're proposing in 3 to 4 precise sentences. It is revisionist study, creative thought through interpretation, or value based education. You must take your clear instance that what is the methodology about. Second, make the objectives of your paper more specific. When you mention revisionist reading or relevance to AI, briefly explain how these classical ideas practically inform modern day pedagogy or innovation. Third, add a few concrete examples. For instance, how can Rasa theory shape creativity in training today? How can Dharma form ethical AI? Specific illustrations will strengthen the academic rigor of your paper. Finally, explicitly connect your paper to the framework of NAP, which is my recommendation, as it would make this paper more holistic in looking at education and the interdisciplinarity of it to promote Indian knowledge system so that it can strongly align with the conference of theme Viksit Bharat. Overall, the paper has a strong philosophical depth with clear structure and sharper argumentation. It can develop into a compelling framework for research based creativity in 21st century India. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Shubhangi Moghe and I'm pursuing my PhD in psychology from Karnavati University, Gandhinagar. My research topic is impact of organization climate and psychological well-being among paramedical professions. So I'll talk about the introduction first. The term organization climate describes the tone, mood, or environment within an organization which is influenced by the person's collective beliefs, attitudes, and actions. Psychological well being is referred to as mental well being or emotional well being. It is a concept that relates to an individual's overall mental and emotional state. It also refers to a person's psychological health and reflects the ability to cope with life challenges, experience positive emotions, maintain fulfilling relationships, and functions effectively in daily life. The objectives of the study is to study the significant difference between organizational climate and psychological well-being among paramedical professions, to study the effect of all the dimensions of organizational climate, that is warmth, reward, structure, support and commitment, standards, risk and conflict, and the dimensions of psychological well-being, autonomy, environmental mastery, personal growth, positive relations with others, purpose in life, self-acceptance among paramedical professionals. So my first hypothesis, there will be a significant difference between organizational climate and psychological well-being among paramedical professionals. My second hypothesis is there will be a significant difference among all the dimensions of organizational climate, which includes the 6 dimensions, and the dimensions of psychological well-being, which also includes the 6 dimensions among paramedical professionals. So my sampling stratification, the sample of 120 paramedical professionals that is aged between 25 to 45 years, both males and females, will be selected through random sampling from Gujarat. The tool which have been used is the Organizational Climate Scale, which was developed by Gills in 2010. It is a 5-point scale, which includes 1 to strongly disagree to 5 to strongly agree. The second is the Psychological Well-being Scale. It is an 18-item scale and it has 6 dimensions. And the scale has 7 alternatives, and out of them, 1 alternative has to be selected. The procedure, the study employed a standardized scale to ensure participant convenience and accessibility. Data scoring was carried out using Google Docs, and the collected results were analyzed and presented. And the statistical analysis was the Pearson's moment correlation coefficient was applied. So from the result table, it shows that the correlation of organization climate and psychological well-being were not significant at the 0.01 level. And from the second table, it shows that all the dimensions of organization climate and all the dimensions of psychological well-being, it is not significant at 0.01 level. So the discussion is the results indicated no statistically significant differences between any of the organizational climate dimensions and the dimensions of psychological well-being. The findings suggest that within the sample of paramedical professionals, perceptions of organizational climate facets did not systematically vary according to levels of psychological well-being. So, the conclusion of the study is the absence of significant relationship suggests that psychological well being among paramedical professionals may not be directly influenced by organizational climate factors. Instead, psychological well being appears to be shaped by a broader constellation of influences, including individual coping mechanisms, occupational stressors, inherent in healthcare work, personal resilience, social support systems, and factors external to the organization. Thank you.
I would like to heartily congratulate Ms. Moghe for being a part of this conference, and I really appreciate the relevance of her study in this work. Examining organizational climate and psychological well being among paramedical professionals is both timely and socially meaningful. The use of standardized tools, including Carol Day Rive's psychological well being framework, strengthens the academic foundation of your research. Your objectives, hypotheses, and statistical methods are clearly presented, which reflects good research structure. One strong aspect of your research is the identification of a clear research gap. Paramedical professionals are often overlooked compared to doctors and nurses. This gives your study importance and practical value. Now, a few key suggestions from my side. Since your results largely show weak or non significant relationships, the discussions can go deeper. You can consider whether factors like personal resilience, coping strategy, workload, or burnout acts as mediating variables. This will make your findings more analytically rich than merely reporting non significance. Secondly, you can briefly clarify the sampling process, especially since data were collected online. This will strengthen the methodological transparency of your paper. Thirdly, you may add a short section on practical implications such as mental health interventions, resilience training, and institutional support system for paramedical staffs. Overall, this is a relevant and well structured paper with clear statistical interpretation and strong analytical discussion. It can become a solid contribution to organizational and health psychological research. Thank you.